I have hard water. When I added my pH down, my phosphoric acid, I could literally see calcium phosphate crystals forming in my nutrient solution, sparkling and falling out of solution like snowflakes. Magnesium, on the other hand, is a mobile element. If there's a magnesium deficiency, plants will take out magnesium from the old leaves and send it to the new leaves. So you'll see intraveinal chlorosis on the bottom leaf.
I think that's an important point to stipulate. The old is the old leaves on the plant the same moment, and the new is the new leaves at the top of the plant. I think that's important because I was thinking old as a time differentiation.
It says nitrogen conversion efficiency, and that's how efficiently the plant converted the inorganic nitrogen, the ammonium or nitrate nitrogen, into organic nitrogen.
Let's go ahead and get into a leaf analysis with Harley Smith. You're here with Mark Batwell on Perfect Gardens TV. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and make sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and make sure to hit the notifications for future videos like this. Let's go ahead and get into it. Make sure to check out our monthly membership. For as little as $2.99 a month, you get access now to 105 members, 2,586 photos, 274 videos, 21 files, 1,106 shared links, and much, much more.
Have you done experiments with brick levels with trace minerals and without trace minerals?
No, I haven't done that. Not with the trace elements. I have, though, with the biostimulants and the trace elements, like the humic acid and the kelp. And I was able to measure higher levels of all of the trace elements in the leaf tissue than in the control.
How
so it does have an effect on uptake.
How fast could you measure? You said you have your own spectrometer. How fast could you? You had. Oh, darn it! You know.
I wish I had that still.
Oh man, I was like, how fast could you get a test back?
When I have my own instrument, I could get it done the same day. You know, maybe a couple hours. No, I actually had to go overnight because you have to dry the leaf material first, and then grind it up into a powder, and then dissolve it in boiling nitric acid in a fume hood. And then clarify it and then spray it. So the actual test took about 30 seconds. There was about a half a day process. Yeah, so I took a lot of leaf tests and soil tests. So I have really some data that's not in the books too. I kept a lot of that.
That's really cool.
Data when I left MPK.
On one of my other videos, like 4 months ago, I wasn't talking shit, but I was like, you know, we got to get you on the channel because I'm not the scientist. He's the guy that has to be responsible for all those lab tests. I can say whatever I want, you know, and I love it that you actually do keep records of your stuff. And I love that. Thank you so much for being one of those scientists.
Yeah, being the scientist is great, but the best growers are the best record keepers.
Yeah. I agree. It's all about, I hate to say the pocketbook, but it's survival. It's about surviving. If you do not pay attention to every single thing, like you get so curious I have no degrees, but I feel like I'm pretty good with plants. I don't want to even put my name into a box with everyone else, but I think I spend more time with plants than a lot of people that might be, you know, get a degree with plants, you know, if that makes sense. So
it does. You know, the biggest, breakthroughs that I've had, it's just through observation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's good to have the science background so that you can, you know, kind of help interpret it or come up with a hypothesis of why. But the biggest advances I've made have been either accidents or just something that I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like with amino acids, I'm the one that discovered a lot of that. I got an amino acid blend from a vitamin manufacturer out east to experiment with, and I have hard water at home. So my wife was growing some plants commercially at the time, and I said, "Well, let me try a little of this, put a little in the reservoir, and see what it does." You know, I'll just put a very small amount in because I didn't want Sue to see what I was doing, in case it killed the plants. But I could tell right away just by looking at the plants. Well, these plants are responding positively to what I gave them. But here was the thing. I have hard water. When I added my pH down, my phosphoric acid, I could literally see calcium phosphate crystals forming in my nutrient solution, sparkling and falling out of solution like snowflakes.
Common molecules are attracted to each other.
it was the calcium in the phosphates, the phosphoric acid. Now, when I added the amino acids, one of the things I noticed was, wait a minute, I'm not getting any more lime scale. I just, at the end of the grow, instead of a rock garden I couldn't even scrape off, I literally took a paper towel, wiped a little algae film, rinsed it with the hose, it was clean. So I thought, wait a minute, where'd all that calcium go? I went, oh, into the plant. So I narrowed my search to amino acids with calcium, and there it was. There were 2 universities overseas that had just done some patch clamp technology on calcium ion channels. And it was right there the whole time. The glutamic acid and glycine stimulated those cells.
That's really interesting what you're saying right there, is because we have a product called Drops of Balance that we've got reports from people telling us that they don't have calcification buildup anymore, and they're amino acid precursors basically, sulfate base. And you just explained to me why, and I've been wondering that. I appreciate that very much.
Okay, you know what though? It's getting a little late here.
Sure.
I'm going to skip through the rest of this. I wish there's a lot here, obviously, tons. All I'm going to say is that there's immobile and mobile elements for your sap. Calcium is immobile, it's passive. It's only taken up in the transpiration stream. So if you have high humidity, you can get a calcium deficiency, even if there's plenty of calcium. Now, a lot of times just adding CalMag is not going to do it. It's just going to sit there in the root zone. It might even lock up some other elements like phosphorus. Magnesium, on the other hand, is a mobile element. If there's a magnesium deficiency, plants will take out magnesium from the old leaves and send it to the new leaves. So you'll see intervenal chlorosis on the bottom leaves. The veins stay green, but the tissue turns yellow. So if you have a mobile element, if you're doing a sap analysis, you want to test the old leaves and do at the same time test the new leaves. If there's less magnesium in the bottom leaves than in the top, that means that there's a deficiency. They're pulling it from the bottom leaves, depleting it. If there's more magnesium in the bottom leaves than the top, that means they're not using it. They're either shuttling it down to the old leaves for later, or they're not taking it up. That means you have more than what you need. So that is, in a sap analysis with mobile elements, you want to check the top and the bottom and see what the difference is. If there's more than 20% difference, it's probably a deficiency. If there's higher, 20% more, it doesn't mean that it's toxic, but it means that it's luxury levels. It's more than what the plant really wants or needs. Potassium is mobile as well. Phosphorus is mobile, and nitrogen. So those we want to check to do the difference between top, old, and new. Some of the other ones, the immobile ones, calcium, sulfur, semi-mobile. Some of the iron, copper, manganese, zinc are immobile. So we don't have to see the difference between them. But I really love it if I see more of those trace elements toward the end, because I know that the plant's still photosynthetically active. It's still taking them up into the new enough, all the way up to the top of the plant where the biggest buds are. Okay, so that's just background. Let me just quickly show you. Oh, here we go. Here's an example. This is New Age Laboratories did the test, and they gave me permission to use this. So for a sample today. So this is week 7.5. It says hemp, but it's just because by definition those leaves don't have any THC in them. So it's hemp in their world. But you can see here my phosphorus. It gives you a recommended what's a high and low range for sap. And then we see what our new leaf is on the top. See it there? Can you read that? 388, and the low is 663. So we can see that the phosphorus is high, but there's more in the old leaves than the new. So that means they have luxury levels of phosphorus. That means it's shuttling them back to the old leaves instead of using it. And it's pretty high levels too, higher than what the highest recommendation is at week 7.5. So I knew I was using PK Boost. I think, oh man, I don't want that much phosphorus. I got to definitely cut that back. So next time that grower that does this, they're going to cut back the phosphorus at week 6 so that it isn't accumulating to luxury levels. There's less for it to burn off at the end. Now with that is the potassium. So let's see if potassium follows it.
And you're saving money at that point too.
And you're saving money, and you're not going to get the off flavors or burning characteristics. Too much phosphorus. So I can see this here and say, okay, I know I can I can bring that phosphorus down without hurting the plant at all. But how far can I go down? I don't know yet. One of these days I'll catch it. Potassium, same way.
So the phosphorus is what gives the wrong taste, the not able to burn taste. Yeah, I mean, not able to burn or stay lit. Is that what you said?
I think it's two. I think it's both. It's two things. It's the nitrogen, the free nitrates, and it's the phosphorus. The curing can do a lot for that, though, to get rid of the extra.
Okay.
You know, the biological enzymes will break down the chlorophyll, off gas. Sometimes you'll smell a little that ammonia smell while it's drying and curing. It's off gassing, and then you're going to get smoother and better taste later on. But I think phosphorus also contributes to that flavor.
I appreciate that. I've never heard that before. So that was really interesting.
And we all overdo it with phosphorus. And I think so. Yeah, I want to have that. I want to stress the plant, but I don't want to give it. I want to stress it with what it needs, not with what it doesn't need.
Got it.
Because I don't want to accumulate it for later. But you can do a lot. You can solve a lot of problems though, just with your drying and curing if you do it properly. But your potassium here, go down here. The old is still higher than the new, so it has luxury levels of potassium as well. It's still in the zone. Well, the high level would be 4,600, and we're at 4,620 in the old. So it's probably not causing any problems. But again, I don't need that much. The plant isn't, this particular strain in this environment isn't using all the potassium it's given. It's not sending it up to the top. Now, here's the one that really threw me off, though, the magnesium. Looks like it's very deficient, right? I mean, look at this. We got lower levels in the old leaves than the new. So it's taking the magnesium from the old leaves and sending it to the new. So at first I think, well, maybe I need to add more magnesium.
I think that's an important point to stipulate. The old is the old leaves on the plant the same moment, and the new is the new leaves at the top of the plant. I think that's important because I was thinking old as a time differentiation, not in the same moment. But please continue. I just want to be a little more clear for everyone.
Yeah, it's the old leaves are the bottom leaves, and the new leaves are the top leaves. And we're not testing the newest new leaf. We're testing the first fully developed leaf, fan leaf near the top, and we're in the bottom leaves near the bottom. So we're just comparing the two to see what's going on with the sap. What's the plant using at that moment? So anyway, I look at magnesium and say, wow, it looks like a deficiency. Well, look at this, but they have 1,450 parts per million in the new leaves of magnesium, and high is considered 730. So I'm saying, is this strain just way different? Or is there something going on right here at week 7.5 where it's doing so much photosynthesis, it's just taking all the magnesium it can get at this moment? So when I would look at that, I'd say, I don't need to have a new target for my fertilizer. I just need to cut back on my PK boost a little earlier and maybe give it just a little bit more magnesium sulfate so that it balances out better. So in my next round, I can do this again and see if I can be close to optimum. Nothing luxury, nothing deficient.
So you want the old and the new leaves to be relatively close together through these tests.
Yeah,
that would make sense. That would make sense, actually. Yeah. The whole plant's maturing together.
A lot of places pull their plants when they're just purple at the top, and then the rest of the plant at the bottom is just completely greened out still. I don't know.
And also multi-harvest. You know, if you have more optimal levels through a multi-harvest process, you can harvest the tops that don't have all your nutrients, and then the rest is still going to finish off better or more filled. That's interesting.
Yeah, I like that. Now remember, when we're doing the SAP analysis, though, we're not doing one SAP analysis. I'm doing a SAP analysis every 2 weeks. So I want to see those snapshots in time at different stages of plant's growth. What is it's not so much just what am I giving the plant, but what are they using right now?
So the highs and lows change through the whole process.
They change through the process. And I can say,
I would love to see that Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah. And in this particular trial that we did, we were getting consistently low numbers on the trace elements, the metals early on. So I had to figure out what was going on there. And that's going to affect bricks, and it's going to affect downstream. And so I was able, little by little, to over the weeks, to improve my uptake of the trace elements. And and we did get a record harvest, but my bricks isn't where I want it to be. If I would have corrected that earlier, I could have got higher bricks. But I'm encouraged though, because the sugar at the very end, when I got my trace elements up into the sufficiency zone, then the sugars in the new growth were higher.
All you need is a better trace mineral product that is available to the plant and more water soluble. I think I'm going to send you out something as a present just for jumping on the channel. I appreciate this.
Well, thanks. Yeah, we did do. I did add some more of the trace elements downstream because I think I was oxidizing them because we have such clean water. The ORP is so high with our source water that I think it's oxidizing the iron and manganese right when it's being dosed, in the pipes.
And the plant could take up like oxidized iron, but doesn't use oxidized iron, right? It can store it at that point, right? But it doesn't use it.
It can't take it up. If it's oxidized, it precipitates out a solution, and it could take other elements with it. It could precipitate out with some calcium carbonate and pull some other elements.
So it's like a cation exchange moment.
Yeah,
it holds on to things.
I can say that. But in hydro, we don't really have cation exchange. They have to be soluble in ionic form. Anyway, but I was having trouble with that, so we were trying to remediate along the way. But I use this gives me some clues to work with, but it still doesn't take the place of, well, what's going on here? How would I change this? Do I need to change it? Why isn't the plant taking up iron? What's going on with my pH in the root zone? Should I take my nitrate back? There's lots of things you can do to improve uptake of the nutrients. Should I add my biostimulants? Should I add some fulvic acid? Should I do a foliar spray during transition? This gives me data, but it doesn't tell me what to do.
Do you think the bricks? Do you think the measuring? Do you think the looking at the bricks on a deeper level, like similar to like blood work, do you think that it would be able to go deeper at some point to where you'd be able to pinpoint exact deficiencies of certain like amino acids or whatever that are within that bricks, or certain sugars like oligosaccharides or glucose or whatever? Like, because you can still have the bricks right there and see the total dissolved solids, but you still don't know the exact pinpoint of like what levels you needed.
You could have high chloride levels and it will affect the bricks. It doesn't mean it's good.
Your nitrogen tests are interesting. Sorry to interrupt you. I apologize.
Yeah, I'd like to get higher bricks, but the way I'm going to get the higher bricks is by getting control of these trace elements earlier in the process. I can't wait till week 7.5, and all of a sudden now I'm getting, better levels of zinc and iron and manganese and copper. Look at my copper is low. I don't even know why, but I don't really want to mess with copper because again, we're only talking about 8 parts per million at the most. It'd be really easy to overdo it.
Isn't copper though super connected to the flavors of the plant?
It could. I don't know the answer to that one, but I know it is. Is it? I don't want to overdo it with copper. I can tell if someone, for my leaf analysis, if someone had copper pipes, I can see the copper in the water, in the leaf,
It's turns brown.
So I know it has to be there. It's essential, but really how much? I'd rather err on the side of too little than too much, because I can always give it a little more, but I can't take it out.
What nitrogen is that total at the bottom? Because if it's not NH4 or NO3, what chemical compound is that?
Yeah, this is a very interesting. Yeah, you see the bottom line. It says nitrogen conversion efficiency, and that's how efficiently the plant converted the inorganic nitrogen, the ammonium or nitrate nitrogen, into organic nitrogen. The higher the number there, it's like a grading scale. If you get 90 is an A, 80 is a B. It's too low. I mean, much lower than that, you probably have some problems with your nitrogen. You want to see, now what you see above there is the nitrogen from ammonium, all the new leaves, the nitrogen from nitrate. And then there's a calculation, then there's total nitrogen that they test, which includes the organic nitrogen. And there's a formula to determine the nitrogen conversion efficiency. And I really would like to see it in the high 90s. That would be the sweetest weed right there, because you wouldn't have the free nitrates floating around in there. but there's not a lot. This is good. I mean, I give it an A, but I wouldn't give it an A plus. Maybe I'd give it an A minus, I should say, not a full A.
Is the, how some molybdenum deficiencies will show with purpling? Does that show that with when your plant is producing those anthocyanins that it's also affecting that nitrogen process?
Yeah, you get a nitrogen deficiency, you can get more anthocyanins. They'll cover up some of the chlorophyll.
I bet the product.
What levels? Oh, sorry. I was just wondering what levels do you try to keep it at like a medium type of application level with nitrogen, like going towards that late flower when you have a high anthocyanin production?
Yeah, I've ramped down my I have a different formula. See, this is for commercial growers, right? I have a different nutrient for every 2 weeks for the plant's growth cycle.
Yeah. And
I'll have a higher nitrogen during veg, and I start ramping it down quite significantly. And even then, when I made the formula for the grow formula for NPK Industries, they wanted me to have high levels of nitrogen. Why? Because the grower says, "Oh, look how fast my plants are growing. This is great fertilizer." But I said, no, we don't want that high of nitrogen because it's going to slow down the transition time, and it can have a negative effect downstream on bricks and on flowering.
Yeah, it creates that harsher
high nitrogen. And
it creates that black ash.
They were pushing me, and I got to a point where I finally said, "You know what? Let's just forget the whole thing. I'm not going to make a nutrient formula for you because I don't care, because I'm not going to do something that I know is going to hurt the plants." Absolutely. Just because it looks better, it's for marketing points. So even then, I took my nitrogen up to as high as I could, my conscience would allow for veg, and that's and it was okay, it was good. Then I think
that's what leads to that bad flavor with the no flush is the high nitrogen leads to that black ash. It doesn't have to do with the actual flush; it's the excess of nitrogen. Because Fire Sciences, it shows that the ash, when it's gray, the components of it are calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus, as well as I think it's potassium already. But yeah, what makes it black though is the high nitrogen source or the content. So I think I see where you're connecting that. So I think that all folds into each other.
Yeah, that's something that this test doesn't show is smoking it downstream after it's all properly dried and cured. And the first time I started doing this, and I got my phosphorus and my nitrogen where I wanted it, it was a nice white ash.
Harley, it sounds like
and the head grower was saying, "Okay, Harley, you nailed it." I said, "Well, I didn't yet, but I'm glad I'm in the zone. I'm in the right zone."
Flush, and
it didn't have to flush, but we take it down. But we're not quite getting a nitrogen deficiency at the end, but we're close.
What's the highest you saw in that conversion rate you've ever seen?
Well, we've done in the 90s. I don't know what the highest was, maybe 93, something like that. I've seen, but I think I can do better. I mean, that's the whole point. This is a snapshot, a moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a matter of continuous improvement. And sometimes, and it's finding, like I did with the manganese, you find what your limiting factor is.
Law of minimum, law of tolerance.
It was a trace element. And all I did is made a very small adjustment to one trace element, and it won the contest for the whole state of Oregon.
Have you ever
identify it? Huh?
Have you ever heard of the law of minimum or the law of tolerance?
Yes.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. It's like it increased that threshold.
When I'm looking at water analysis, I don't want to see more than 70 parts per million of chloride. That's kind of my limit, and no more than 50 parts per million of sodium.